Pilates. My name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates, the Cornu Core, my patrons Clayton, Ruby, Stephanie, and Jonathan, and anyone interested in surviving as a Pilates instructor or a student. There's just 3 titles on my list today of notes to cover, and the number 1 is adding 2 and 2. At the end of my broadcast, I usually end with the same delivery of aphorisms, and one of them is add 2 and 2. And instead of starting at the end, one of you, maybe you, asked me for information on a very germane question, and I got a very germane answer, and then coming back to the well wanting to know more about this, after I'd already exchanged a means of exchanging value for value. To the extent that you really want to know right now what that's all about, you can Google it. And more than likely you'll find at least 2 or 3 blog posts or web pages that belong to me, as well as a bunch of other stuff. MMP has a very particular view of that and has a great history with that, at least memories, that a long time ago I was in my 3rd trip into Brazil, and it was in Rio de Janeiro, and in a taxi, as I think of it, with my host and Teresa de Castro. I think you would want me to acknowledge that you were there and that you acted with great aplomb and capability in representing Cornu. And anyway, she is Brazilian by birth, so Portuguese is her native language, and totally fluent in English, almost since birth as well, when I met her. And the person whose place I was getting to stay in, Neil, who was so nice and so gracious to allow things to come together for this next wave of MMP. And the discussion was about where this image comes from and what its nature is and what's on the other side of this and why do they put this on the back of their book. So go look it up. If you want a live interaction, a live private interaction and a discussion about what it is and what it means, that's $1,000, and that's PayPal or Bitcoin if you want. Okay. Otherwise, it's well documented on both my blog and on my site. I'm not sure where or how to find it, but I know it's out there. And so Googling those words and such, you ought to find not only my stuff, but everybody else's as well. So, Patreon.com/michaelmillerpilates. And if you don't want to go there, definitely go just to paypal.me/michaelmillerpilates and come up with what the answer to the question for you is worth. And based on that, I can give you, hopefully, that or more in value for what you're looking for. Okay? So, it's about karma. And it's about learning how to allow others to embrace karma and not have to apologize for asking for something for free again that they're really looking for clarification on. So, number 2 is about language. And if I ask you, how well can you speak the language? What language are we talking about? Your native language? So we went from, yes, that image that used to hang in, that Joe had hanging in his studio. So watercolor. What it says and what it means and was the subject of this conversation in at least 4 different languages going on. And it's a great one for discussing around a fire table that's warm and sunset and heat lamps are going, but not here. How well can you speak the language, of course, within the context of this broadcast and trying to help you survive as a Pilates instructor? Unless you're new to this, it's obvious that the MMP point of view, which is just one point of view out of millions, but in this point of view, I always get lost when I go into the depth of explanation of what that means, about where I was going. I'm coming back to embrace the karma, and we were talking about that in the languages, yes, and how it seems a frontier no longer explored that I'm a part of, or that exists beyond the delineation of groups by other definitions. In any event, in MMP, that point of view, which is where I was going, from that point of view, there's grammar within the sequence, and that grammar gives you the basis of speaking the language. You use words, just like out of the dictionary, you use exercises, and all exercises are interesting, but to the extent that you use the words to speak the language is a degree of implementation as a Pilates instructor that I hope allows you to get paid more for what you do, or have confidence in why you ask for more, and in knowing that not everybody does that. Meaning, not everybody sees Pilates as a language, because it's much better to merchandise words out of a dictionary and make it all about the thing itself, so that you can take the word and apply it to another thing, an issue in the body, which is in some ways exactly what you do as a Pilates instructor. It's just the degree to which you're aware of the grammar that you either are participating in or unaware of or ignoring. Within MMP, because there's grammar there, within the sequence of Joe's mat, hundreds, roll up, roll over, leg circles, rolling like a ball, one leg stretch, two leg stretch, dot, 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 all the way to push-up. That sequence out of Joe's book. So, language. And my note, so it's like, how well can you speak the language is a matter of knowing that there is one, or that you can pretend there's one that's made up, and if it helps you choose what's next as an exercise, or evaluate what you're doing, or develop a pattern or a plan on how to enable your student to get to the performance of the mat. That's the MMP point of view. That's all. And within that point of view, how well you know the grammar empowers you to make use of whatever words you have at your disposal. Whatever exercises or movements that you have or you like from whatever modality or discipline, are but paints on the canvas that you paint with. To survive as a Pilates instructor, to the extent that you understand that Pilates is a language that has grammar, it allows you to participate as an instructor speaking a language. When you use sign language, you come before words because it's the gestures that have assigned meanings. Like before it gets to a word, because you're looking at it visually as a gesture, and then the gesture turns into a word in a language. But the gesture is what it is, regardless, that's what I want to point to, regardless of the word in a language you ascribe to it. So know your sign language and know my sign language and build upon it rather than reinvent it, unless you prefer. Hermit.com. I have 4 patrons helping me pay for the ability to say all that sign language, MMP, is on the web. Make use of it while you can. And so then number 3 is MMP POV. MMP POV. We've spent time recently talking about the MMP point of view, and that it's just one point of view out of millions, thousands. And it has its way of looking at things, and what I hope to do is share with you the identification of looking at 2 things. The identification of the biomechanics of cord retention and an ideal point of view of Pilates. And that MMP POV, which is the title of the subject for today, that POV makes explanation of Pilates, and I think most distinctively, perhaps, but not necessarily uniquely at all. I don't know. From the MMP point of view, Pilates is an experience. And so just like whether or not you're even aware that Pilates is structured in a way that can be understood as a language and empower you to speak that language with authority and the credibility of the results you get from the way you speak the language, because it's based on the results that you get that determines whether or not a person wants to come back and have more. Within MMP, we are looking for the experience, and that doesn't matter what the individual is like. No matter what no matter what makes them an individual, human being, that's all I'm talking about here. No matter what their limitations or gifts or imbalances or whatever the definition of the individual is, that individual is seeking a target in the pursuit of Pilates, which is an experience. And the experience is Joe's definition: complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit. MMP looks at that as being, thinking, and observing. Observing connection to the universe faster than light, according to the best minds that humanity alive can conceive of. It points right to the core of our existence as human beings, that we're capable of being at all, and thinking, and observing. And no matter how bizarre the individual is, or how just individual the individual is, the target of the instructor within MMP is to seek the experience of what completely coordinating those 3 capacities is like, or it can be, or is, just to get to the experience. And everything else is derivative, derives off of that. and my note about this, that the point is, talking about Pilates, what is it? And the point is to capture the focus, is one way of saying it. Right? This complete being completely concentrating on the purpose of the exercises as you perform them, pretty close to Joe's words. Is a struggle to capture that focus. Because you have to have participation and coordination with those three things. The Pilates instructor in one word, Pilates is exercise. In two words, it's corrective exercise. And the purpose of the Pilates instructor is to empower a student, hold the curtain aside, and empower a student to find the connection between their being, thinking, and observing. And to be able to be in pursuit of the experience while you're in pursuit of the performance of the mat work, of the little bitty piece of an exercise that only this person can barely do. The point is to capture the focus. The point is to capture the complete coordination of the three as a state of being in the body, in the moment of the doing. That's MMP. So if you're a patron, thank you. If you've recently sent me something on PayPal, thank you. That's www.paypal.me/michaelmillerpilates. I think it's karma that when you extend value for value, you usually get much more back in value than if you seek to exchange no value for what you're looking for and get it for free. Right? Embrace the karma and hopefully empower your students, partially from the feeling of ownership they get for having paid for what it is they got in return. They may hate it and they may think it's valueless. But if they keep coming back, that's an indication of something. And then in thinking about the watercolor on Joe's wall and stories that I've heard about Joe's attitude toward others in the studio, was that he was very sincere with people that were sincere and found it hard, or didn't tolerate much insincerity from others about the method and applying themselves, and so there's nothing in my impression of the creator of the method in their studio being tolerant of fools, or of, perhaps the imagery of splashing around on the surface, but never came to the point of what you're after within the MMP point of view. and which comes from Joe's definition. So, life can't live forever. Read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Evaluate points of view and invest in those that empower you. Add 2 and 2. Direct your thinking and Geist